So welcome everybody. Thank you for taking Team Peanut's training course on how to do software quality assurance and software quality testing. We're very excited that you're taking our course. We've learned a lot of interesting things on this topic we'd like to share with you because we know and you know that it's a great job skill. And even if you don't become a quality assurance tester, any work you do in IT, whether you're a business analyst, programmer, or you're somebody talking to the user to gather their requirements, or you're a manager of a development team, anything you do in IT, your ability to create nice and effective work and work your way up to the top levels of income and the top job level will benefit from a good solid knowledge of software testing methodologies. So let's get started. See, then I'm going to flip over here and I'm going to present my PowerPoint for visual support as I'm talking. Guys, you can take my PowerPoint and use it. It's okay. Just add more stuff on top of it, right? Don't just give me back my exact stuff without adding anything, because then I can't really give you good marks. But if you want to copy some of my slides out or take my thing and repurpose it and use some of it, that's good. So let's go back to my training video now. So you can see here that our topic is quality assurance and software testing. Let's take a couple of minutes to talk about what this means. And now you could go and talk about all the stuff we did at the beginning of class, right? What's the difference between testing with a tool like JUnit, which is very procedurally based, and we use the traceability matrix, and we use the state table for our methods. Then you could talk about how quality assurance engineering is something that's based on a good design. You're welcome to use my famous saying, you cannot test your way out of a bad design. Quality assurance is something you get by following a good design methodology. Agile best practices guide. Get the user requirements. You can interview the users. You can use UI prototyping. You can find out what they want their screens to look like in terms of input boxes, output, and controls. Do they want a button? Do they want a slider? So we give them a blank piece of paper and we ask them to sketch out what they want their UI to look like. So that's all stuff you're explaining to your user at this point when you're talking about the high-level conceptualization of what is quality assurance engineering and software testing methodologies. So you talk about that, and then you could, right? So you could talk about this, and you could present the slides as you're talking, and you could narrate over them, or you can just put text on the screen. After we're done this recording, I'll go back and show you how to edit and annotate your screen. So here, as you see, we see a good graphic visual which illustrates the process of software testing. We do it from the beginning, we do it in the middle, and we do it at the end. Our software application starts with test cases and traceability matrix. We test continually as we're writing code. We do unit testing at the end of every sprint or iteration of development, and then at the very end we do a final level of testing. Oh, what's that I hear you say, dear viewer of my video? What's the software testing methodology lifecycle? Well, let's go take a look and find out. Yeah, I'm using a funny voice because I'm being you right now. And then you could go down and you could use something like this. You could use mine or make your own. So the way we do it here in software testing land, by the way, my daughter Nikki, when she was in high school and she sort of wanted to talk like me or make fun of me, that's the voice she used. I don't think I talked like that, but that's what she did anyway. That's where I got it from. So here we see that the software testing methodology lifecycle works at the beginning, right from the start. We conceptualize coming up with tests as a way of organizing our thinking, and that's what we do before we write our first line of code. As we're writing our code, we use method unit tests. We could create something called state tables, which we'll talk about in a minute, which tells us when we're testing our methods, what inputs do we give the methods, what return values do we expect back from them. And then, after we've gotten our modules or classes working, our next problem is how do they communicate correctly. And here you could go and research, right? You could go and find some of your own case studies. Just go and Google software quality assurance testing methodology case studies, examples of where software went wrong and screwed things up. Go and find your own case studies. There's millions of them. So once we get all of our classes together, we do integration testing to make sure the modules communicate together correctly using method calls. If we're using an old language like C, which does not support object orientation, our modules communicate together. Yeah, seriously, that's what Nikki thought I sounded like. I don't think I sound that way. Our modules communicate together using global variables. Once we've gotten all of our modules working and integrated together, next we test externalities. We do system testing. We take input from the outside and we send back the required outputs. We might be doing something as simple as a home temperature control system, right? Sensing the room getting hotter or colder and then turning the furnace on or off. Or it might be something really life critical like a subway train system control or a power reactor or traffic lights or something where people could get injured if it didn't work. And finally, at the very end, once our application is going, we do user acceptance testing. We bring our users in and we ask them to try and break the system, right? User acceptance testing is the users doing absolutely everything they can to see if they can get the system to screw up. Every mistake any user could possibly make. They also look at things like colors, fonts, user experience, appearance, corporate branding logos, right? If it's Royal Bank or something, it has to have certain colors, and how the application flows. And when they're happy, then we put it out in production. We write test cases before we write the code. We use test writing as part of the building, the design of the specification and architecture. We test frequently after every sprint. In fact, if you're using an integrated testing environment like Gradle or what's that other one? Not Groovy. Anyway, Maven or a few other ones we'll look at. Every time you compile the code, you can configure it to run your test cases. Sometimes a user advocate, meaning somebody from the customer's department, sits with us beside the programmers, and gives their approval. They give suggestions, directions, because the cheapest point at which to fix an application is just when you're writing the code. After it's in production and other modules and other classes and other methods are counting on that code, if we change it, we now have to do regression testing, which we'll talk about on Monday, to make sure that all the stuff which worked correctly before is still working. And yeah, Nikki used to like move her head up and down like that when she was doing her Peter impression. Anyway. So Parth and everybody else and Harmanpreet and everyone else, you keep going till you get to the end and you get to some conclusion. And by the way, creating an instructional video, I think I showed you this yesterday, didn't I? Or was it another class? You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell it to them, and then you conclude by reminding them of what you told them and doing a wrap-up and a summary and a conclusion. And in fact, I think I put that here. Didn't I give you that little thing? Oh, right here. Slide 65. Assignment 1, due end of day on Saturday. I mean, if you get it to me on Sunday, that's fine. I won't take marks off, but get it done as quick as you can, I think. Get it over with. Can be up to 4 people in a team. So here is your procedure by which you create any instructional module, whether it's a lecture, you're writing a book or a blog or a video or a podcast. You state clear learning outcomes up front. You say, today we're going to be talking about software quality assurance testing. Sorry, I'm not bobbing my head. Software quality, oh, my wife does this. She says when I want to be serious, I hold my finger up like this. We want to do software quality assurance testing, testing methodologies, and if you want to look at JUnit or Gradle or Maven, even if you don't deeply know about them, you can introduce them and talk about them. And so you say whatever you're going to say, right? You say, here's our 3 learning outcomes for this lesson. And then step 2, and here's where you create a relational link to your audience's interest the what's in it for me dynamic. So you can talk about case studies. You can talk about how a knowledge of testing and quality assurance practices will make you a better programmer. And then step 3, you deliver screencasting, right? You can make visuals with PowerPoint. You can talk, you can lecture. If we're at school, I have the students go into an empty classroom and they go on the whiteboard and draw pictures and they video of themselves doing that, right? You can have maybe have your roommate hold your phone and then you can draw things out on a piece of paper and then you can upload that video from your phone and you can suck it into your Camtasia if you like. And then finally, I forgot to conclude this, so I'm going to go and add my remaining thing here. So copy, paste. Oops. I think that's when we ran out of time at the end of yesterday's class. Oops. Not having a mouse is killing me. All right. Step 4. Summary, conclusion. So then there should be a net impact statement here, by the way. So your conclusion should always have an impact statement. Tell them why it matters to them. Tell them how they've benefited from learning this. Give the impact statement of how it's benefited them. Impact statement of how this has benefited them, of how much they like it, and of how they're going to go and buy all of your other courses on Udemy. You can even give them discount coupons. Say, because you're my student and you've done great here with me in this course, go and enter Learn with Peanut as your discount coupon when you buy other courses from Udemy. Give them some tchotchkes. People like that. Of how this has benefited them. So Parth and Harmanpreet and everybody else, have fun with it, right? I actually made fun of myself to demonstrate that if you're worried, it's because you're probably self-conscious. And if you screw up when you're talking or something, then just make fun of yourself and keep going. That's what I do. So let's go back to Camtasia. And now I have a 12-minute video. See, it wasn't even very hard to get to 12 minutes. And if I was actually explaining things like the object interaction diagram, I could probably get to 30 minutes, no problem. Don't worry if it's too long. It's fine, really. So here I'm going to stop my screen capture by clicking on stop.